My name is Joey Freeman, and I was the External Affairs Vice President for the ASUC last year when the Occupy Cal movement was really in full force. I think that looking back on my term as EAVP, what happened that day was definitely one of the most difficult days. Not only in terms of the issues at stake and what people were talking about, but the fact that the police department that was supposed to protect us, protect the students, engaged in what I believe and what many students believe was really shameful action. In using force against non-violent action, student protesters who were there linking arms non-violently. So I played a role along with other leaders in the ASUC, other leaders in the Graduate Assembly, in trying to mediate the conflict, if you want to call it that, as best as we could. We met with senior administrators, we met with vice chancellors, with the chief of the UC Police Department, and we tried our best to negotiate a compromise, one that campus, with their no encampment policy, and one that the Occupy protesters would both agree with. And we were told that we would hear what the administration agreed to, and then we would then go announce that compromise to the protesters on Sproul. And unfortunately the protesters didn't agree, because while the campus allowed them to be there 24/7, they refused to have encampments. So we saw the next week the November 15th day of action, and the encampments were set up for quite some time after that. So on that day, on November 9th, I had the honor, really, of speaking at the noontime rally in the Sproul steps. And I used my turn at the microphone to kind of refocus the conversation, because I believe that activism is crucial to the movement, but I also wanted to refocus the conversation to Sacramento. So I spoke about the need for students to join the ASUC and join really student leaders across the system in reforming Proposition 13, which ultimately would return billions of dollars back to state coffers to fund things like higher education. At the time, we were trying to extend progressive tax measures, which now was Proposition 30, which passed just recently a year later, and also to get students to register to vote and to lobby with us in Sacramento. So that's what I spoke about at the rally. I think looking back, Occupy Cal fits into the long history of UC Berkeley's activism, UC Berkeley's history of free speech. And it's something that, we don't have tents set up on Sproul anymore, but the issues are still very much real and relevant today. What Robert Reich spoke about so eloquently during his speech during the Occupy Cal protests, what we worked on in the ASUC, what the Occupy Cal movement was really all about, was the growing wealth disparity in this country, the fact that many students believe that the university is going in a direction far away from the original California Master Plan for Higher Education. And I really do believe Proposition 30, which recently passed, was a step in the right direction. But these problems still exist. The University of California still has a very serious issue of how are we going to remain an accessible university, an affordable university. I think it was unfortunate that the Middle Class Scholarship Act last year didn't pass, because there's a lot of middle-class families, as Robert Reich speaks about, that simply can't afford a college education. It's out of reach for them. So looking back, I think whether or not people want to say that Occupy was successful, whether or not it was a distraction or a benefit to the campus, one thing that it absolutely did was raise the level of consciousness on this campus and really throughout the system, UC Berkeley being the preeminent public institution in the world, that these issues matter. They're not going away, and we really need to double down and focus on them to make sure that the University of California and really public education across the country remains public and remains an opportunity for all eligible students to receive an education, to really move on to the middle class and to good jobs. And and at least in California to restore the mission of the Master Plan for Higher Education.